Anthony Harris was driving home after an exhausting 12-hour shift as an emergency medical technician. His eyes, heavy with fatigue, scanned the dark, winding road ahead. It was a night like any other, or so he thought. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and the occasional rustle of leaves hinted at the presence of nocturnal creatures. Anthony's thoughts drifted to his family, eagerly awaiting his return. He longed for the warmth of his home, the comfort of his wife's embrace, and the cheerful chatter of his children. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light pierced the darkness, followed by a deafening crash. Anthony's heart raced as he instinctively slammed the brakes, bringing his vehicle to a screeching halt. For a moment, there was an eerie silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then, the unmistakable smell of burning rubber and the faint sound of a car horn shattered the stillness. Anthony quickly grabbed his emergency kit from the back seat and hurried towards the source of the commotion. His training kicked in, adrenaline sharpening his senses. As he approached, the scene before him became clearer. A mangled car lay on its side, smoke billowing from the engine. The front end was crumpled like a discarded soda can, and shards of glass glittered ominously under the moonlight. "Help! Somebody, help!" A voice cried weakly from within the wreckage. Anthony's pulse quickened as he recognized the voice. It belonged to Sam Parker, a local teacher and staunch supporter of Biden. The same Sam Parker with whom Anthony had engaged in countless heated debates about politics and race. They were known in the community for their passionate disagreements, often finding themselves on opposite sides of protest lines. Yet, in this moment, none of that mattered. "Sam, it's Anthony. I'm here to help," Anthony called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. Through the shattered windshield, he could see Sam, bloodied and barely conscious. The sight was gut-wrenching, but Anthony pushed his emotions aside and focused on the task at hand. He needed to act quickly. The car could catch fire any moment, and every second counted. Anthony assessed the situation swiftly. The driver's side door was jammed, and the vehicle was precariously balanced. He decided to approach from the passenger side, which appeared slightly less damaged. He grabbed a crowbar from his kit and began prying the door open with all his might. The metal groaned in protest, but Anthony's determination was unwavering. "Hang in there, Sam. I've almost got you," Anthony muttered under his breath, gritting his teeth. After what felt like an eternity, the door finally gave way. Anthony carefully maneuvered himself into the car, mindful of the jagged edges and broken glass. The interior was a grim sight. Airbags deployed, blood smeared across the dashboard, and the acrid smell of smoke filling the air. "Sam, can you hear me?" Anthony asked, his voice calm but urgent. Sam's eyes fluttered open, and he let out a weak groan. "Anthony, is that you?" "Yeah, it's me. Stay with me, okay? I'm going to get you out of here," Anthony reassured him. With practiced hands, Anthony checked Sam for injuries. A deep gash on his forehead was bleeding profusely, and his left leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. It was clear that Sam was in a lot of pain, but he needed to be moved before the situation worsened. "All right, Sam, I'm going to lift you out. This might hurt, but I need you to stay strong for me," Anthony instructed, his voice steady. Sam nodded weakly, his face contorted in pain. Anthony carefully positioned his arms under Sam's shoulders and legs, lifting him as gently as possible. Sam let out a sharp cry of pain, but Anthony didn't falter. He carried Sam out of the wreckage, each step deliberate and cautious. Once they were a safe distance from the car, Anthony laid Sam down on the ground and began administering first aid. He applied pressure to the wound on Sam's forehead, trying to stem the flow of blood. As he worked, he could hear the distant wail of sirens approaching. Help was on the way, but for now, it was just the two of them. "Anthony, why are you doing this?" Sam asked weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Anthony paused for a moment, looking into Sam's eyes. "Because it's the right thing to do, Sam. No matter our differences, you're a human being in need of help, and that's all that matters right now." Sam's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of pain and gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know if I would have done the same." Anthony gave him a reassuring smile. "You would have, Sam. We're more alike than you think." The sound of approaching sirens grew louder, and moments later, an ambulance arrived at the scene. Paramedics rushed to assist, and Anthony briefed them on Sam's condition. As they prepared to transport Sam to the hospital, Anthony felt a sense of relief wash over him. Sam was in good hands now. Before the ambulance doors closed, Sam reached out and grabbed Anthony's hand. "I owe you my life, Anthony." "Thank you." Anthony squeezed his hand gently. "Just focus on getting better, Sam. We'll talk more later." As the ambulance sped away, Anthony stood alone on the dark road, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. He took a deep breath, the weight of the night's events settling in. He had saved a life, but little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he believed in. Hospital and initial confrontations. Anthony Harris sat in the waiting room of St. Mary's Hospital, his usually steady hands trembling slightly. His mind replayed the night's events over and over. The screech of tires, the crunch of metal, and then the sight of Sam Parker, bloody and unconscious, trapped in the wreckage. Anthony had acted on instinct, drawing on his years of training as an EMT to save the life of a man he had considered an ideological enemy. He glanced at the clock on the pale green wall. It was nearly midnight. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow, making everything feel even more sterile and unwelcoming. Anthony sighed and stood up, pacing the room. He felt an inexplicable need to see Sam, to be sure that he was going to be okay. Despite their political differences, despite the heated debates and public confrontations, Anthony couldn't shake the sense of obligation he felt. "Mr. Harris?" A nurse called, breaking his reverie. "You can see him now." Anthony nodded, taking a deep breath as he followed her down the sterile hallway to Sam's room. The nurse opened the door, revealing Sam lying in bed, his face bruised and bandaged, a monitor beeping steadily beside him. Sam's eyes fluttered open, and he looked at Anthony with a mixture of confusion and wariness. "What are you doing here?" Sam's voice was weak, but the suspicion was clear. Anthony stepped forward, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "I wanted to check on you. Make sure you're okay." Sam's eyes narrowed. "Why? So you can gloat about saving a liberal snowflake?" Anthony shook his head, taking a seat beside the bed. "No, Sam. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Politics aside, you're a human being, and you needed help." Sam looked away, staring at the ceiling. "I don't need your pity, Anthony." "It's not pity," Anthony replied firmly. "It's compassion, something we all could use a little more of." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken tension and years of ideological clashes. Anthony could see the skepticism in Sam's eyes, the deep-seated mistrust that wouldn't be easily dispelled. "Look, Sam," Anthony began, choosing his words carefully, "I know we've had our differences. Hell, we've been at each other's throats more times than I can count. But last night, it put things into perspective for me. Life is fragile, too fragile to waste on hatred and division." Sam's gaze softened slightly, but he remained guarded. "So, what? You think saving my life is going to change everything? Make us best buddies?" Anthony chuckled, a hint of warmth breaking through his serious demeanor. "No, I don't. But maybe it's a start. Maybe it's a chance for us to see each other as more than just political opponents." Sam sighed, wincing as the movement pulled at his injuries. "It's not that simple, Anthony. We've got years of bad blood between us." "I'm not saying it will be easy," Anthony admitted, "but I think it's worth trying. If not for us, then for the community. We both care about this place, even if we have different ideas about how to make it better." For a moment, Sam was silent, his eyes searching Anthony's face as if trying to gauge his sincerity. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer, but still tinged with skepticism. "Why do you care so much, Anthony? Why are you here?" Anthony leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Because last night, I didn't just save your life. I realized that maybe it's time to start building bridges instead of walls. And that starts with us." The next few days were a whirlwind of medical procedures and recovery for Sam. Anthony found himself visiting regularly, bringing books, or just sitting quietly by Sam's bedside. Their conversations were initially stilted, filled with awkward pauses and guarded comments. But gradually, a tentative understanding began to form. One afternoon, as Anthony entered the room, he found Sam struggling to reach a glass of water on the bedside table. Without a word, Anthony stepped forward and handed it to him. "Thanks," Sam muttered, taking a sip. "No problem," Anthony replied, taking a seat. "How are you feeling today?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Sam joked weakly. "But the doctors say I'm making progress." "That's good to hear," Anthony said, genuinely relieved. "If you need anything, just let me know." Sam studied him for a moment, then asked, "Why did you become an EMT, Anthony? Why choose a job that puts you in harm's way?" Anthony smiled, a hint of pride in his eyes. "Because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help people, no matter who they are or where they come from. It's not about politics or race for me. It's about humanity." Sam nodded slowly, absorbing Anthony's words. "I guess I never really thought about it that way. I always saw you as well, you know? A Trump supporter?" Anthony finished for him, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," Sam admitted. "But maybe there's more to people than just their political affiliations." "Exactly," Anthony agreed. "And maybe if we can see that, we can start finding common ground." As the days turned into weeks, Sam's recovery continued, and Anthony's visits became a regular part of his routine. They discussed everything from sports to family, gradually peeling back the layers of prejudice and misunderstanding that had defined their relationship for so long. One evening, as Anthony was about to leave, Sam called out to him. "Anthony, wait." Anthony turned, curious. "Yeah." Sam hesitated, then said, "I just wanted to say thank you, not just for saving my life, but for being here, for trying to bridge the gap." Anthony smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "You're welcome, Sam, and thank you for giving me a chance." As he walked out of the hospital, Anthony felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be many more challenges ahead. But for the first time, he believed that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to move forward together. As Sam Parker began his arduous journey through physical rehabilitation, Anthony Harris found himself increasingly involved in Sam's care. The hospital administration, recognizing Anthony's role as the initial lifesaver and aware of his skills as a trained EMT, requested that he assist with Sam's rehabilitation sessions. Though initially reluctant, Anthony felt a deep-seated sense of duty. The two men, once fierce adversaries in the political arena, were now forced into a situation that required mutual cooperation and understanding. The first few sessions were marked by palpable tension. Sam, confined to a wheelchair, was in a vulnerable state, both physically and emotionally. Anthony, on the other hand, was wrestling with the complexity of his feelings, an amalgamation of resentment, obligation, and a tinge of curiosity. Their initial interactions were stilted, filled with awkward silences and brief, transactional conversations. "Okay, Sam, we're going to start with some leg exercises today. Just follow my lead," Anthony instructed, his voice professional but devoid of warmth. Sam nodded, his eyes avoiding Anthony's. "Sure, let's get this over with." The exercises were grueling. Sam's body, still recovering from the trauma of the accident, resisted his efforts. Anthony's hands were firm but gentle, guiding Sam through each motion. Despite the physical demands, it was the emotional strain that weighed heaviest on both men. Days turned into weeks, and the frequency of their interactions increased. Slowly, the walls of silence began to crack. It started with small talk, comments about the weather, inquiries about the day's schedule, but gradually the conversations deepened. One afternoon, as Anthony helped Sam with a particularly challenging set of exercises, Sam broke the silence. "You know, I never really understood why someone like you would support Trump." Anthony paused, his grip tightening momentarily on Sam's leg. He took a deep breath, contemplating how to respond. "It's complicated, Sam. There's more to it than you might think." "Enlighten me," Sam replied, his tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Anthony sighed, his gaze distant. "I grew up in a rough neighborhood. My family struggled to make ends meet. Trump's policies on job creation and economic growth, well, they resonated with me. I've seen improvements in my community that I attribute to his administration." Sam listened, his expression softening slightly. I guess I can see that. But what about the racial tensions, the divisive rhetoric? Anthony's eyes met Sam's, a flicker of pain visible. I'm not blind to it, Sam, but I had to weigh the pros and cons. For me, the economic benefits outweigh the negatives. It's not a perfect world. The conversation lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken thoughts. It was the first of many such dialogues, each peeling back another layer of their complex personalities. In another session, as Anthony adjusted the straps on a resistance machine, Sam shared a piece of his own story. You know, my father was a union man, worked in the steel mills his whole life. He always believed in the power of collective bargaining, in the strength of the working class. That's why I support Biden. I see him as a champion for the everyday worker. Anthony nodded, his hands methodical in their movements. I get that. My dad was a janitor, worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. It's funny how we can have such similar backgrounds and end up on opposite sides of the fence. Sam chuckled, a sound that surprised both of them. Yeah, life's full of contradictions. As the weeks passed, their conversations ventured into even more personal territories. Anthony spoke of his experiences with racial profiling, the fear and anger that accompanied those encounters. Sam recounted his struggles with privilege guilt, the internal conflict of benefiting from systemic advantages while advocating for equality. One evening, after a particularly intense rehabilitation session, they sat together in the hospital's small courtyard. The setting sun cast a warm, golden hue over the scene, creating an atmosphere ripe for introspection. Anthony, Sam began, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. I've always seen you as this vocal, almost aggressive supporter of your beliefs. But now, I'm starting to realize there's so much more to you. Anthony smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the fading light. Same here, Sam. I used to think you were just a privileged guy who didn't understand my world. But you've got your own battles, your own reasons. Their newfound understanding didn't erase their ideological differences, but it forged a bridge of empathy between them. They began to see each other not as representatives of opposing political factions, but as complex individuals shaped by a myriad of experiences and motivations. One day, as Anthony helped Sam navigate the parallel bars in the rehab gym, Sam stopped abruptly, turning to face Anthony. You know, Anthony, this whole experience, it's made me rethink a lot of things. Maybe, just maybe, we're not as different as I thought. Anthony met his gaze, a sense of camaraderie in his eyes. Yes, Sam, maybe we're not. These moments of vulnerability and honesty laid the groundwork for a burgeoning friendship. They began to share not just their political beliefs, but their hopes, fears, and dreams. Anthony spoke of his desire to see his community thrive, to create opportunities for the next generation. Sam talked about his passion for education, his belief in its power to transform lives. Their dialogues, once filled with contention, now brimmed with mutual respect and a willingness to understand. They didn't always agree, but they listened, really listened, to each other. And in that listening, they found a common ground that transcended politics. As Sam's physical condition improved, so did their relationship. The rehabilitation sessions became less about the exercises and more about the conversations that accompanied them. They debated, they laughed, they challenged each other's assumptions. And through it all, they grew. The forced dialogue that began as a necessity evolved into a meaningful exchange of ideas and perspectives. Anthony and Sam discovered that their differences, while significant, were not insurmountable. They learned that empathy and understanding could bridge even the widest of divides. In the end, the rehabilitation process healed more than just Sam's physical wounds. It mended the rift between 2 men who, against all odds, found a way to connect on a deeply human level. And in that connection, they discovered the true power of dialogue, the ability to see the person behind the politics, to recognize the shared humanity that binds us all. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Sam Parker, a high school teacher known for his dedication to his students, discovered an unexpected connection that would bridge his world with that of Anthony Harris. Sam was reviewing student records in his cluttered office, buried under stacks of papers and lesson plans, when he stumbled upon a file that caught his eye. The name on the file read, Derek Harris. Derek Harris? Harris? Could it be? Sam muttered to himself, intrigued by the possibility. He remembered Anthony mentioning a nephew during one of their hospital conversations, but it hadn't registered until now. Derek was one of Sam's students, a young African-American teenager with immense potential but plagued by issues of attendance, behavior, and a history of racial bullying. Sam decided he needed to speak with Anthony about Derek. He picked up his phone and dialed Anthony's number, a contact he had saved but never thought he would need for something like this. "Hello, Anthony? It's Sam Parker," he began, somewhat awkwardly. "Hey, Sam. Everything all right?" Anthony's voice was cautious but polite. "Yeah, everything's fine. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something, rather someone. Your nephew, Derek. He's one of my students." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Anthony responded. "Derek? Is he in trouble again?" "Not exactly. I mean, he's got some issues, but nothing we can't work through. I wanted to meet with you to discuss how we can help him. He's a bright kid, Anthony. He just needs some guidance." Anthony sighed. "Yeah, Derek's had it rough. I'll be honest, Sam. I'm worried about him. He's smart, but the system's been tough on him. Let's meet. Maybe we can figure something out together." A few days later, Sam and Anthony met at a local cafe. It was a modest place, the kind where regulars sipped coffee and read newspapers. They chose a quiet corner table, away from prying eyes and ears. "Thanks for meeting me, Anthony," Sam began, ordering a coffee for himself and a tea for Anthony. "I've been thinking a lot about Derek. He's got a lot of potential, but he's struggling with some serious stuff." Anthony nodded, his expression one of deep concern. "Tell me about it." "He's been dealing with a lot of bullying at school. And honestly, I think some of the teachers don't give him a fair chance because of his background. It's frustrating." Sam took a sip of his coffee, choosing his words carefully. "I understand. I've seen it myself. That's why I think we need to work together. Derek needs to see that there are people who believe in him, who are willing to fight for him." Anthony leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "All right, Sam. What do you suggest?" "First, we need to address the bullying. I can talk to the school administration, but it would be more effective if we did it together. Secondly, I think Derek needs a mentor, someone who understands what he's going through. Someone like you." Anthony looked surprised. "Me? I mean, I try to be there for him, but I'm not sure if I'm making a difference." "You are," Sam insisted. "You're his family. He looks up to you, even if he doesn't show it. And maybe we can both mentor him. Show him that despite our differences, we can come together for something greater." Anthony was silent for a moment, contemplating the proposal. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it. For Derek." Over the next few weeks, Sam and Anthony became a formidable team. They met with the school administration, addressing the bullying issue head-on. Principal Johnson, a stern woman in her late 50s, listened carefully as Sam and Anthony laid out Derek's situation. "Mr. Parker, Mr. Harris," Principal Johnson began, adjusting her glasses. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. Bullying is something we take very seriously here. I will ensure that Derek's situation is investigated thoroughly." "Thank you, Principal Johnson," Sam replied. "We just want to make sure Derek gets a fair chance." Anthony added, "And it's not just about the bullying. Derek needs support from his teachers. He needs to know they believe in him." Principal Johnson nodded. "Understood. We will do our part." With the school's commitment secured, Sam and Anthony turned their attention to Derek's academic and personal growth. They began meeting with Derek regularly, both at school and outside, forming a support network that the teenager desperately needed. One afternoon, they took Derek to a local park, a serene place with tall trees and winding paths. It was a perfect setting for a heart-to-heart conversation. "Derek," Sam began as they sat on a bench, "we know things haven't been easy for you, but we believe in you. You have so much potential." Derek looked down, kicking at the dirt. "It's hard, Mr. Parker. Sometimes it feels like no one cares." Anthony put a hand on Derek's shoulder. "Hey, buddy, we care. We're here for you. And you know what? You've got a whole community that can support you. You just have to let us in." Derek looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "You really think I can do it? Make something of myself?" Absolutely, Sam said firmly. But it starts with you believing in yourself. And we're going to help you every step of the way. As weeks turned into months, Derek's attitude began to shift. He became more engaged in his studies, and the bullying incidents decreased significantly thanks to the proactive measures taken by the school. Sam and Anthony's combined efforts were paying off. One evening, Anthony invited Sam over for dinner at his house. It was a modest home, filled with warmth and the delicious aroma of home-cooked food. Derek was there too, smiling more than Sam had ever seen him. "Thanks for coming, Sam," Anthony said, handing him a plate of food. "This is a family recipe. Hope you like it." Sam took a bite and his eyes widened in appreciation. "This is fantastic, Anthony. Thanks for having me." As they ate, the conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from politics to personal anecdotes. It was a stark contrast to the heated debates they used to have. "Derek's doing really well," Sam noted. "He's even talking about college now." Anthony smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "Yeah, he's got big dreams. And with people like you in his corner, I know he'll make it." Derek, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "I just want to say thanks to both of you for believing in me. It means a lot." Sam and Anthony exchanged glances, their bond stronger than ever. They had come a long way from their days of ideological conflict, united by a common goal, helping Derek realize his potential. In the end, it wasn't just Derek who was transformed. Sam and Anthony, through their collaboration and newfound understanding, had also changed. They had discovered that beneath their political differences lay a shared humanity, one that could overcome any divide. And it all started with a simple act of compassion on a fateful night, leading to a journey that none of them had anticipated but all of them had needed. Anthony Harris and Sam Parker's decision to collaborate on a community project marked a significant turning point in their relationship. What began as a begrudging sense of mutual obligation had evolved into a genuine partnership aimed at addressing the divisive issues plaguing their community. Both men, once staunch adversaries in the political realm, now found themselves united by a common goal: to educate young people about the importance of engaging in politics constructively and respectfully. Anthony looked around, seeing the skepticism in the faces of those he had known for years. He took a deep breath. Because if we keep seeing each other as enemies, we're never going to fix anything. Sam and I are trying to find common ground. We're trying to teach the next generation that it's okay to disagree, but still work together for the greater good. At the same time, on the other side of town, Sam was having a similar conversation with his colleagues at the local university. During a faculty meeting, Professor Jane Thompson, a vocal advocate for progressive causes, pulled Sam aside. "Sam, can I have a word with you?" Jane asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Of course, Jane. What's up?" Sam responded, already sensing where this was headed. "I've heard about your new friendship with Anthony Harris. You do realize he's a Trump supporter, right? How can you reconcile that with everything you stand for?" Jane questioned. Sam nodded. "I know, Jane. Believe me, I do. But Anthony saved my life. And since then, we've found a way to work together on this community project. We're trying to bridge gaps, not widen them." Jane frowned. "But Sam, associating with someone like him, it sends the wrong message. It makes it look like you're endorsing his views." "It's not about endorsing his views," Sam clarified. "It's about finding a way to work together despite our differences. We're showing the community that it's possible to disagree and still collaborate for a common cause." Jane crossed her arms, clearly unconvinced. "I just hope you know what you're doing. The stakes are high, and our principles matter." "I understand, Jane, but if we can't find a way to come together, even just a little, then we're doomed to stay divided forever." "Anthony and I are trying to show that there's another way," Sam said earnestly. The resistance they faced from their communities was a constant reminder of the deep-seated divisions that existed. However, it also strengthened Anthony and Sam's resolve to continue their work. They knew that true change wouldn't come easily and that it would require challenging the status quo. One Saturday, Anthony and Sam organized a community event at the local park to promote their project. They invited families, students, and local leaders to participate in workshops and discussions about civic engagement and respectful political discourse. Despite the initial skepticism, the event saw a significant turnout. As the event progressed, Anthony noticed a group of his friends, including Marcus, standing at the edge of the park, watching but not participating. He decided to approach them, hoping to bridge the gap. "Hey, Marcus. Thanks for coming," Anthony greeted him with a smile. "We're just here to see what this is all about," Marcus replied, his tone still skeptical. "That's fair. Look, I know this seems strange to you, but I really believe in what we're doing here. It's about helping the kids, giving them a better future," Anthony explained. Marcus looked around, seeing families engaging in discussions, kids participating in activities, and a sense of community slowly taking shape. "I can see that, but it's hard to just forget everything else." "I'm not asking you to forget, Marcus. I'm asking you to see the bigger picture. We can't let our differences stop us from making a positive impact," Anthony said, his voice filled with conviction. Meanwhile, on the other side of the park, Sam was having a similar conversation with Jane and a few other colleagues who had attended out of curiosity. "Sam, I have to admit, this is impressive," Jane said, looking around at the engaged crowd. "Thanks, Jane. It means a lot to hear that," Sam replied, relieved. "I still have my reservations, but I can see the potential here." "Maybe you're onto something," Jane conceded. "That's all I'm asking for, Jane. Just a chance to show that we can find common ground, even if it's just a little," Sam said, hopeful. As the event continued, Anthony and Sam's efforts began to pay off. People from both sides of the political spectrum started to mingle, share stories, and find common interests. The walls of prejudice and skepticism slowly began to crumble, replaced by a sense of shared purpose and community. By the end of the day, Anthony and Sam stood together, looking out at the park filled with people who had come together despite their differences. It was a small victory, but it was a start. "Looks like we did something right," Anthony said, a hint of a smile on his face. "Yeah, it does. And this is just the beginning," Sam replied, feeling a renewed sense of optimism. Their journey was far from over, and they knew there would be more challenges ahead. But the resistance they faced from their communities had only strengthened their resolve. Anthony and Sam were determined to prove that unity and collaboration were possible, even in the face of deep-seated divisions. And in doing so, they hoped to inspire others to follow their example, one step at a time. Growth of the friendship. Despite the external challenges, Anthony Harris and Sam Parker begin to develop a genuine friendship. The journey from adversaries to allies is neither quick nor easy, but it is profoundly transformative. Their shared experiences gradually break down the barriers that their political and racial differences had erected between them. Through moments of vulnerability and open dialogue, they come to realize the importance of empathy and understanding, ultimately questioning their previous beliefs and recognizing that humanity transcends political divisions. The first tentative steps towards friendship occur in the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of the hospital. Anthony, driven by a sense of duty and curiosity, continues to visit Sam during his recovery. Their initial conversations are uncomfortable, peppered with awkward silences and tentative exchanges. Yet, as days turn into weeks, these brief interactions begin to stretch into longer, more meaningful dialogues. One such conversation unfolds during a quiet afternoon in Sam's hospital room. Anthony enters, carrying a cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this," Anthony says, handing the cup to Sam. Sam looks up, surprised but grateful. "Thanks. I could use it." They sit in silence for a moment, the hum of medical equipment filling the room. Anthony breaks the silence, his voice thoughtful. "You know, it's funny. We spent so much time arguing, but we never really talked." Sam nods, sipping his coffee. "Yeah, I guess we were too busy trying to prove each other wrong." Anthony chuckles. "Seems like it. But now, seeing you here, it's different. Makes me wonder about a lot of things." Sam looks at Anthony, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "Like what?" "Like why we believe what we believe," Anthony replies. "And why we let those beliefs define us so much that we forget the person on the other side." This marks the beginning of a series of conversations where they share their life stories, their motivations, and the experiences that shaped their political views. Anthony talks about growing up in a predominantly black neighborhood, facing systemic racism, and his views on law and order. Sam shares his experiences of economic hardship, witnessing the struggles of the working class, and his belief in social justice. One evening, as Sam's rehabilitation progresses and they find themselves spending more time together outside the hospital, they go for a walk in a nearby park. The air is crisp, and the leaves are starting to turn golden. "You know," Sam says, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad we met like this. It's given me a lot to think about." Anthony smiles, looking at the changing leaves. "Me too. It's strange how life works, isn't it? One minute we're at each other's throats, the next we're, well, friends, I guess." Sam stops walking and turns to Anthony. "Friends. Yeah, I like the sound of that." Their friendship deepens as they spend more time together, sharing not just their ideologies, but their personal struggles and victories. Anthony reveals the challenges he faces as a black man supporting Trump, dealing with the backlash from his community and the internal conflict it causes. Sam opens up about his fears for the future, his doubts about whether his support for Biden will bring the change he hopes for. In one particularly poignant moment, Anthony invites Sam to a family barbecue. The atmosphere is warm and lively, filled with laughter, music, and the savory smell of grilling food. Sam feels a bit out of place at first, but Anthony's family welcomes him with open arms. "This is my cousin Anthony," Anthony introduces, placing a hand on Sam's shoulder. "He's the one who saved my life." The words hang in the air, and Sam feels a lump in his throat. He shakes hands with Anthony's relatives, feeling a sense of belonging that surprises him. Later, as they sit by the fire, Anthony's mother, Evelyn, joins them. She looks at Sam with kind eyes. "You know, Anthony told me about you," she says. "I was skeptical at first, but seeing you here, I can see why he speaks so highly of you." Sam smiles, feeling a warmth that goes beyond the fire. "Thank you, Mrs. Harris. Your son is a good man." Evelyn nods, looking at her son with pride. "Yes, he is. And it seems he found a good friend in you." These moments of connection and understanding are not without their challenges. Both Anthony and Sam face resistance from their respective communities, questioning why they would associate with someone from the other side. Yet, these challenges only strengthen their resolve. In a candid conversation one evening, Sam expresses his frustration. "Sometimes it feels like no matter what we do, people will always see us as enemies." Anthony nods, his expression serious. "I know, but we can't let that stop us. We've seen each other for who we really are. That's what matters." Sam looks at Anthony, his eyes filled with determination. "You're right. And if we can change, maybe others can too. It won't be easy, but it's worth it." Their friendship becomes a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of empathy and open dialogue. They begin to see the world through each other's eyes, understanding that their differences are not insurmountable, but rather opportunities for growth and connection. As they continue their journey together, Anthony and Sam learn that true friendship is built on a foundation of trust, respect, and the willingness to see beyond surface-level differences. Their bond becomes a powerful example of how individuals from opposing sides can come together, challenging the divisive narratives that seek to keep them apart. Through their shared experiences, Anthony and Sam discover that the essence of humanity lies not in the ideologies they hold, but in the compassion and understanding they extend to one another. Their friendship, forged in the crucible of adversity, becomes a symbol of hope and unity, inspiring others to look beyond their differences and find common ground. In the end, Anthony and Sam realize that their friendship is not just about changing each other's minds, but about expanding their own perspectives and embracing the richness of human connection. They learn that while they may never agree on everything, their shared humanity is what truly matters, and it is this realization that ultimately brings them closer together. As the weeks turned into months, the community project spearheaded by Anthony Harris and Sam Parker began to bear fruit. What had started as a tentative collaboration between two ideological opposites was now transforming into a beacon of hope for the youth and the broader community. The project, aptly named Unity in Action, aimed to educate young people about the importance of political engagement and respectful discourse. They organized workshops, town hall meetings, and mentorship programs. Derek, Anthony's nephew and Sam's student, was among the first to truly benefit from the initiative. One sunny afternoon, the community center buzzed with activity. A group of teenagers, including Derek, were preparing for a debate competition. Anthony and Sam stood at the back of the room, watching the young participants with pride. Who would have thought we'd see the day? Anthony mused, a smile playing on his lips. Sam chuckled, nodding in agreement. It's amazing. Look at them. They're not just arguing. They're listening, understanding each other. It's more than I ever hoped for. Their efforts had not gone unnoticed. Local media began to cover their events, praising the project for its innovative approach to bridging divides. One article in particular caught the attention of regional politicians who reached out to Anthony and Sam for advice on implementing similar programs in other communities. During a meeting at the community center, a local reporter named Lisa approached them for an interview. She was eager to capture the essence of unity in action for a feature story. Anthony, Sam, can you share what inspired this project and why you think it's been so successful? Lisa asked, holding up her recorder. Anthony glanced at Sam before answering. It started with a desire to make a difference, to show that despite our differences, we all want what's best for our community. We realized that if we could come together, we could set an example for others. Sam nodded. Absolutely. And seeing the kids like Derek thrive, knowing they're learning to respect and understand different viewpoints, that's the real success. It's about more than politics. It's about building a better future. The community began to rally around the project. Parents volunteered to help with events, local businesses donated supplies, and schools incorporated the program into their extracurricular activities. The initiative not only educated the youth on political engagement, but also provided a safe space for dialogue and personal growth. One evening, Anthony and Sam found themselves sitting on the steps of the community center, reflecting on their journey. Remember the first time we tried to talk politics? Sam laughed, shaking his head. It always ended in a shouting match. Anthony grinned. Yeah, I remember. We were so stuck in our own beliefs, we couldn't see the person behind the opinion. But look at us now, Sam said, his tone more serious. We did something good here, Anthony. We made a difference. Anthony nodded, feeling a swell of pride. We did. And it's just the beginning. Their work began to garner regional recognition. They were invited to speak at conferences and share their experiences with other communities facing similar divides. Their story became a powerful testament to the impact of empathy, dialogue, and collaboration. During one such conference, held in a neighboring city, Anthony and Sam took the stage to a standing ovation. The audience was eager to hear how two men with starkly different political views had found common ground and achieved such success. Sam started the presentation. When Anthony and I first met, we were on opposite sides of a deep political divide. We argued, sometimes heatedly, but then something happened that changed everything. Anthony continued. A near-fatal accident brought us together. In that moment, it didn't matter who we supported politically. What mattered was saving a life. That experience forced us to see each other as human beings first. As they shared their journey, the audience was moved by their honesty and vulnerability. The conference ended with a Q&A session, where many expressed admiration and curiosity about replicating the project. One attendee asked, "What advice would you give to others trying to bridge similar divides in their communities?" Anthony responded thoughtfully, "Start by listening, truly listening, without the intent to respond or argue. Understand where the other person is coming from and find common ground." Sam added, "And be patient. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But it's worth it." Back in their community, the effects of unity in action were becoming increasingly evident. Derek, once a troubled student, had blossomed into a confident young leader. He often helped mentor younger participants and spoke passionately about the importance of unity and understanding. One day, Derek approached Anthony and Sam after a particularly successful event. "I just wanted to thank you both," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "This project changed my life. It gave me a purpose and showed me that we can make a difference if we work together." Anthony placed a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "We're proud of you, Derek. You've come a long way." Sam smiled warmly. "And you're proof that this work matters. Keep leading by example." As the project continued to thrive, the community's perception of Anthony and Sam evolved. They were no longer seen as just political adversaries or unlikely allies. They were seen as visionaries who had turned a moment of crisis into an opportunity for growth and unity. Their story inspired others to look beyond their differences and find ways to collaborate for the greater good. The success of Unity in Action became a powerful reminder that, despite our disagreements, we are all part of a shared human experience. In the end, the project not only bridged the gap between Anthony and Sam, but also brought an entire community closer together. It demonstrated that when we focus on our commonalities rather than our differences, we can create meaningful change and build a brighter future for all. ####, the final confrontation. The sound of sirens wailing and the flashing red and blue lights cutting through the night were all too familiar to Anthony Harris. As a seasoned EMT, he had seen his fair share of crises. However, the gravity of the situation hit differently this time. It was personal. Derek, his nephew, was at the center of a storm that threatened to undo all the progress Anthony and Sam Parker had made through their community project. Earlier that day, Anthony had received a frantic call from Derek's school principal. Derek had been accused of vandalizing school property, an incident that supposedly took place during school hours. The accusations were severe, threatening Derek's academic future and putting a black mark on his already challenging life. "Anthony, we need to talk. This isn't just a minor issue. Derek is facing expulsion," Principal Johnson had said, her voice heavy with concern. Anthony's heart sank. Derek had been doing so well lately, thanks in part to the mentorship and guidance provided by the community project he and Sam had spearheaded. Anthony knew he had to act swiftly, but he also knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed Sam. Meanwhile, Sam Parker was at home, reviewing notes for the next community seminar. His phone buzzed, and he saw Anthony's name flash on the screen. "Sam, it's Derek. He's been accused of vandalism. I need your help." Anthony's voice was strained, the urgency palpable. "I'll be right there," Sam replied without hesitation. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved from bitter political adversaries to trusted allies. This was a test of their newfound bond, and Sam was determined not to let Anthony down. As Sam arrived at the school, he found Anthony pacing in the parking lot. The two men exchanged a brief nod before heading inside to meet with Principal Johnson. The atmosphere was tense, and the stakes were high. "Thank you both for coming," Principal Johnson began, her expression somber. "We have evidence that points to Derek's involvement in the vandalism. Security footage shows someone wearing a hoodie similar to Derek's near the scene." Anthony's eyes narrowed. "Similar? That's not concrete evidence." Sam leaned forward, his legal background kicking in. "Principal Johnson, may we review the footage? There must be more to this." Reluctantly, the principal agreed and led them to the security office. The grainy footage played on a small monitor, showing a figure in a hoodie spray painting graffiti on the school walls. The figure's face was obscured, and the hoodie, while similar to Derek's, was a common brand and color. "This could be anyone," Sam pointed out. "We need more than this to accuse Derek." Principal Johnson sighed. There were also witnesses who claimed they saw Derek near the scene. Anthony clenched his fists. "Witnesses? Who are they? Are they credible?" Before the principal could respond, the door opened, and Derek walked in, escorted by a school security officer. His face was a mask of defiance, but Anthony could see the fear in his eyes. "Uncle Anthony, I didn't do it. I swear," Derek pleaded, his voice cracking. Anthony placed a reassuring hand on Derek's shoulder. "I believe you, Derek. We'll get to the bottom of this." Sam turned to the principal. "We need to speak with the witnesses, and I suggest we get an independent review of this footage." After some deliberation, Principal Johnson agreed to arrange a meeting with the witnesses. Meanwhile, Sam contacted a friend who specialized in video forensics, hoping to find something that could exonerate Derek. The next day, Anthony and Sam met with the witnesses, a group of students who claimed to have seen Derek near the scene. It didn't take long for Sam to notice inconsistencies in their stories. One student stammered when asked for specific details, while another kept changing their account of the events. "These testimonies are shaky at best," Sam whispered to Anthony. "We need to keep pressing." As they left the meeting, Sam received a call from his forensic expert. "Sam, I've reviewed the footage. There are some anomalies that suggest it may have been tampered with. I'm sending over a detailed report. Armed with this new information, Anthony and Sam returned to Principal Johnson. We have proof that the footage was altered, Sam declared, handing over the report. This, combined with the unreliable witness accounts, makes it clear that Derek is being scapegoated. Principal Johnson reviewed the report, her expression growing more concerned with each passing moment. This is serious. If the footage was tampered with, we have a much bigger issue on our hands. Just then, Derek's teacher, Mrs. Thompson, entered the room. Principal Johnson, I think you need to see this, she said, handing over a USB drive. I found this in one of the classrooms. It's a complete copy of the original footage. As the original footage played, it became evident that the figure in the hoodie was not Derek. The timestamps had been altered, and the real culprit was someone else entirely, a student who had previously been involved in similar incidents. I can't believe this, Principal Johnson said, shaking her head. Derek, I owe you an apology. You've been wrongfully accused. Tears welled up in Derek's eyes as the weight of the false accusations lifted. Thank you, Uncle Anthony. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Anthony hugged his nephew tightly. We're not done yet. We need to find out who's behind this. As the investigation continued, it was revealed that a group of students had conspired to frame Derek, driven by underlying racial prejudices and jealousy. The administration took swift action, addressing the corruption and implementing new measures to ensure such injustices would not happen again. The crisis, while harrowing, ultimately strengthened the bond between Anthony and Sam. They had faced the storm together, proving that unity and perseverance could overcome even the most deeply rooted prejudices. In the aftermath, the community rallied around Derek, offering support and encouragement. The project Anthony and Sam had started gained new momentum, becoming a beacon of hope and change in their town. One evening, as they prepared for another community event, Sam turned to Anthony. We did it, Anthony. We proved that change is possible when we stand together. Anthony smiled, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over him. Yes, we did, Sam. And this is just the beginning. Their journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also been a testament to the power of empathy, understanding, and unity. Anthony and Sam had transcended their differences, forging a friendship that would inspire others for years to come. As the sun began to set on a particularly turbulent period in their lives, Anthony Harris and Sam Parker found themselves standing at the precipice of a profound revelation. The community was buzzing with rumors and whispers, but no one could have predicted the extent of the corruption and prejudice that had infiltrated the school administration. Anthony, you need to see this, Sam said, entering Anthony's modest living room with a stack of papers in hand. His voice carried a mix of urgency and disbelief. Anthony, who had been pacing back and forth, turned towards Sam, a look of grim determination on his face. What is it, Sam? Anthony asked, his eyes narrowing as he took the papers from Sam's outstretched hand. It's the evidence we've been looking for. It proves Derek's innocence and exposes a whole web of corruption within the school administration. This isn't just about Derek anymore. It's about the entire community, Sam explained, his voice tinged with both hope and anger. Anthony quickly scanned the documents, his eyes widening as he absorbed the information. This changes everything, he muttered, more to himself than to Sam. We need to act fast. This could bring justice not just for Derek, but for everyone who's suffered under this system. The two men, once fierce adversaries, now stood united by a common cause. They knew they had to bring this evidence to light, but they also knew the risks involved. The administration would not go down without a fight, and there were powerful forces at play that would do anything to maintain the status quo. Sam, we need to be strategic about this. We can't just go to the media or the authorities without a plan. We need to rally the community, make sure they understand the gravity of the situation, Anthony said, his voice steady and resolute. Sam nodded in agreement. You're right. We need to gather everyone, make them see that this isn't just about politics anymore. This is about justice, about doing the right thing. They spent the next few days meticulously planning their next steps. They reached out to community leaders, activists, and concerned parents, organizing a town hall meeting to reveal the evidence and galvanize support. The tension in the air was palpable, but there was also a sense of hope, a feeling that change was finally within reach. On the night of the town hall meeting, the community center was packed with people from all walks of life. There were those who had supported Trump and those who had supported Biden, but for the first time, they were united by a shared sense of purpose. As Anthony and Sam took to the stage, the room fell silent. Anthony spoke first, his voice strong and unwavering. "Thank you all for coming tonight. We stand before you not as supporters of different political parties, but as members of the same community, as people who want to see justice served." Sam stepped forward, holding up the stack of papers. "We have in our hands the evidence that proves Derek's innocence and exposes a network of corruption within our school administration. This is bigger than any one of us. It's about the future of our children, about the kind of community we want to build together." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of emotion sweeping through the room. People who had once been divided by political beliefs now stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to fight for a common cause. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The evidence was submitted to the authorities, and an investigation was launched. The media picked up the story, and it quickly gained national attention. The corrupt officials were removed from their positions, and a new era of transparency and accountability began. Anthony and Sam were hailed as local heroes, their names synonymous with courage and integrity. But for them, the true victory was not in the accolades they received, but in the realization that they had found common ground despite their differences. One evening, as they sat on Anthony's porch, reflecting on everything they had been through, Sam turned to Anthony with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Anthony, I never thought I'd see the day when we'd be sitting here like this, as friends." Anthony chuckled, shaking his head. "Life has a funny way of surprising you, doesn't it? I guess we both learned that there's more that unites us than divides us." Sam nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Here's to unity and understanding, and to the future we've built together." As they clinked their glasses, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. The Project Community initiative they had worked so hard to establish was thriving, with young people like Derek leading the charge for change. The community, once fractured by political and racial divides, now stood as a testament to the power of empathy and cooperation. In the end, Anthony and Sam's journey was not just about overcoming their own prejudices, but about inspiring a whole community to do the same. Their story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the most divided times, unity and reconciliation are always possible. And so, the story of Anthony Harris and Sam Parker came to a close, but the legacy they left behind would continue to shape the community for generations to come. The bonds they had forged, the lessons they had learned, and the change they had sparked would forever be a part of the fabric of their community, a living testament to the power of understanding and the enduring strength of the human spirit.